Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. For today's episode, we're going to be going over the last season of trades that we're going to evaluate. So we're going to look at the COVID year trades. We're going to look at the 2019 to 2020 offseason, and then that 2020, I guess it's pretty much all during the trade deadline, but the in-season trades during 2020. And we didn't want to grade these ones because I think it's too early to tell. I mean, a lot, like, for instance, Clevenger. Okay, how are you going to grade that? You don't even know what he looked like. He pitched like 7 innings or whatever it was. It was not very much. So it's pretty hard to grade these, but we're going to look back on it and go kind of give a little bit of our predictions and basically answer the question of, are the Padres going to get burned from these 2020 trades? So Chase, do you want to start us out and just go over the list of trades and just maybe give a brief answer to how you feel about them overall, and then we'll highlight a few of them after that?
Yeah, sure. So to start off in the 2019-2020 offseason, we acquired Trent Grisham and Zach Davies from the Brewers for Luis Urias and Eric Lauer. We acquired Tommy Pham and Jake Cronenworth from the Rays for Hunter Renfroe and infield prospect Xavier Edwards and Esteban Quiros. We acquired Emilio Pagan from the Rays for outfielder Manuel Margot and catcher/outfield prospect Logan Driscoll. And then during the 2020 season, we traded for shortstop Jorge Mateo for a player to be named later. And we traded Franchi Cordero and Ronald Bolaños to the Royals for Tim Hill. One of the bigger trades is we got Mike Clevenger and Greg Allen for a player to be named later. And a player to be named later to the Padres for Austin Hedges, Cal Quantrill, Josh Naylor, Gabriel Arias, Joey Cantillo, and Owen Miller. Then, and in the season further, we got Austin Adams, Austin Nola, and Don Altavilla to the Padres for Andres Munoz, Luis Torrens, Taylor Trammell, and Ty France. Then we have another trade with the Mariners for Taylor Williams for a player to be named later. Then we traded the Angels for catcher Jason Castro for Gerardo Reyes. Then we traded Boston for first base/DH Mitch Moreland for Hudson Potts and Jason Rosario. And then we traded the Royals again later for Trevor Rosenthal for center fielder prospect Edward Olivares and a player to be named later. We gave up a ton of prospects in this one. There's some trades that just are kind of washed where nothing really happens. You could say the Oakland A's Jorge Mateo trades like that. The Taylor Williams trade is kind of a wash. The Mitch Moreland trade's too early to tell, and so is the Trevor Rosenthal. But it kind of does look like we took more losses than we gained, though it all depends on how Clevenger pitches this upcoming year.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at the list, there's kind of a lot of big trades that I don't really like. I didn't think of big at the time. I mean, acquiring Trent Grisham and Zach Davies for Luis Urias and Eric Lauer. That one's still too early to tell. Luis Urias in limited at bats didn't look very good for us, but with the Brewers, he looks solid. Trent Grisham had a down 2021, but who's to say it's a down year for Trent Grisham when, we don't really know what a down year and a full season for Trent Grisham is. In the 60-game season, he was fantastic. So I guess the jury's still out on Trent Grisham. What is a good year and what's a bad year for Trent Grisham? Zach Davies goes to the Cubs. We get Yu Darvish out of him. I mean, I could assume we could bring back Zach Davies. We've talked about it, but probably not going to happen. So, I already gave up Zach Davies. Eric Lauer had a pretty good year with the Brewers, but still too early to tell for that one. Tommy Pham and Jake for Renfroe, Edwards, and Quiros. I mean, come on. That's a dub. You got Jake Cronenworth out of it. That's one of your top 3 hitters in your lineup right now, a 4-WAR player as of last year. Really one of the most reliable players in baseball. Consistency, I think he's been fantastic, and I think he's going to keep that up throughout. Maybe not throughout his career, but the next couple years, I think he's going to be fantastic, especially for his price. Tommy Pham, later, man. He was not a very good acquisition. It ended up being the Jake Cronenworth trade instead of the Tommy Pham trade. So, okay, I said later, man, but I really wouldn't be surprised if he gets re-signed for like $8 to $10 million. Next up, we got.
Don't you bring that in this universe?
Well, yeah, dude, I know it sucks, but like, I feel like the Padres are thinking, man, we're pretty limited right now. Like, we have no choice. And the things I've been seeing is like, I saw a hypothetical. I forgot who did it, but it was like, what the Padres need to do: re-sign Tommy Pham a year for $8 million. I was like, if this is what the Padres need to do, we're doomed.
Dude, I feel like it'd be like 4, right?
I thought it'd be like 6 max.
Yeah, see,
But
8 seems like a lot.
yeah, it seems like too much because that's almost what you're gonna get. Like, oh no, well, Saya's gonna cost 15, I think it was, but I mean, that's worth it if you get Tommy Pham out of your lineup. Because remember, he was like the main guy that hit, other than Hosmer, he was like the ground ball bandit. So I mean, it's not worth having in your lineup. Next guy, we got Emilio Pagan, gave up Manuel Margot and Logan Driscoll. I do not like Emilio Pagan. I've not liked Emilio Pagan since we got him. And I liked Manny Margot, but of course we got a center fielder in Trent Grisham. Not to say Manny Margot couldn't play another position, or even Trent Grisham couldn't play another position, but Pagan has yet to show anything outside of maybe a solid April and May, a little bit of June last year. He hasn't shown really anything special. Jorge Mateo, for the player to be named later, whatever, a wash. Jorge Mateo actually had a pretty solid start with the Orioles, though. I'll give him that. Let's see. Franchi Cordero. Oh, dude, I love Tim Hill. This is the Tim Hill trade. We give Franchi Cordero and Ronald Bolaños for Tim Hill. Tim Hill has been solid for the Padres so far. I think he kind of started to show some wear and tear down the road last season, where we started seeing a lot of hiccups out of him. But he had thrown so many innings that, it was to be expected, not only from him, but from most of the bullpen. And, other than that, though, that's been one of your rocks. Like, you don't really throw Tim Hill in there when it's, no one's on, no outs, beginning of the inning. You throw Tim Hill in there when it's like 1 out, bases loaded, and you're desperate to get out of the inning. That's been what Tim Hill's been so good at. He's been so good at getting out of those tough jams that other pitchers put him in. And then we got Mike Clevenger and Greg Allen. I thought Greg Allen was the player to be named later, was he not? Yeah, I don't really remember. I thought he was, but I don't know who it ended up being. But when you look at it, we just haven't seen what Mike Clevenger can do yet. Austin Hedges is still Austin Hedges. He's really bad. Cal Quantrill had a really, really solid year for the Indians, and that's fantastic. Like, we're all rooting for him. In that aspect, it's going to look bad right now, but let's see what we get out of Clevenger first. And not to mention one of the guys that helped Cal Quantrill have a successful season is now the pitching coach for the Padres. So that's a big plus. Josh Naylor, I haven't really kept up with Josh Naylor. Arias, Cantillo, those jury's still out on them. And then we got Nola. Adams is bad. Altavia is gone, but Nola, he looks solid. I think he's going to be the catcher of the future for at least for the next couple of years for the Padres. Taylor Williams, I think he got DFA'd. Not entirely sure. Jason Castro's not with the Padres. Mitch Moylan's not with the Padres. Rosenthal was my favorite closer. I love Trevor Rosenthal, but ultimately he ended up asking for $12 million the next year. Not worth it. So when you look at all those trades, was it worth it? What do we think of the future of them? I'm still pretty optimistic. I still think there's some good to come out of Trent Grisham. I still think there's some I think Mike Clevenger is going to have a great year. I think he's going to start slow, but I think he's going to have a great year. So I think those are the two guys that are going to make some big differences this year. And, I think Nola will supply more power than he did last year. So I'm still pretty optimistic on that front.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I think it's a little bit tough just because when you go through the list, you go, wow, the Padres traded so many like notable guys out of their farm. Now, one side of it is a lot of those guys were never going to find a spot on the 40-man roster. So I think that makes it pretty tough. And that's something to bring up when you have the discussions of like, oh, you moved all these prospects. But you go through a lot of these trades and it's like the Mitch Moreland one to me is like, dude, why? Like, why did that happen? He just lost Hudson Potts. He just like gave him up, right? And so you look at it and you go like, okay, those are like a little bit frustrating. However, the Padres were trying to make a run, and then the season got completely derailed by injuries, including Mike Clevenger, who obviously, I mean, we all have faith in Mike Clevenger to be a bounce back player this year. But at the time, that completely threw off the season. When Lamet and Clevenger went down in 2020, that was so massive. So for a lot of this, it's tough because, okay, you were trying to make a run. And so I get it. I don't think it's bad enough where we're going to look at it and go, wow, like they got totally burned by these trades. Now, I think there's two scenarios where it could look really bad and end up being really bad for the Padres. The first one is one of these prospects that the Padres traded turns into a superstar. And because there's so many different guys, there is a chance, right? If you look at the Nola trade, losing Ty France is really big. However, and Munoz and Trammell and Torrens, like they're all solid, but like Ty France is the big guy there. If Nola comes out and is the catcher of the future and is really solid, it's not going to hurt as bad, right? Same thing with losing Cal Quantrill and Josh Naylor. I would say more Cal Quantrill because he's definitely been the dude for Cleveland. If Mike Clevenger's really good, okay, that one doesn't hurt that bad. All right, what about which one was it? I call it Urias for Grisham. Now Davies and Eric Lauer, like those are kind of a wash. And I think they're both solid, but it just kind of it happened, right? If Grisham and Urias, I think more likely than not, they're going to be pretty even players. That would be my guess. Like, and that's how it's been through the first couple years after this trade. But you keep going through, and it's like, okay, there's nothing that's like crazy. Now, if Clevenger, Grisham, and Nola are not good and they do not pan out, then of course they will get burned by this because those are the three guys that are big parts of the deal. But I don't feel like they gave up anyone, at least at this point. We don't think that they gave up anyone that's like super massive. Like, wow, they just completely whiffed. They blew this trade. This is going to totally hurt them for years to come. And we've gone through when like they traded, where the Padres traded Will Myers, where they acquired Will Myers for Trey Turner. Like that one obviously is going to burn them. I don't know right now if we can say confidently that any of these trades are going to end up being really bad. So for me right now, I'm going to lean no. These aren't going to burn them, but you do have to have a lot of faith in Trent Grisham having a bounce back here, Clevenger recovering from his injury, and Austin Nola to stay healthy. So those are the three guys there that really are going to make and break this season's trades. But anything else you guys want to add to this?
Yeah, I think the Indians kind of did win the Clevenger trade just because they did acquire a lot of good prospects and just a lot of good players. We saw Cal Quantrill break out last year. I mean, getting rid of Hedges is always a plus. The unfortunate thing for them was that Josh Naylor, when he was starting to break out, tore his ACL. So we don't know how he's going to be after that, but he started to really come around when the Indians made the playoffs that year. He was raking off of Garrett Cole. He was like 3 for 4 in the playoff game with like a home run and a double. He was one of the main reasons they were winning. So, and then Owen Miller has been known just to hit throughout all the minor leagues. And Joey Cantillo was, one of those guys that was kind of a really good draft pick later on, had a really good debut. And he might be one of those guys you need to watch for later on because he might develop to be a good 3 or 4 pitcher or a 3 or 4 starter.
Yeah, I think that Cleveland one, Chase, you bring up some good points. Losing Cal Quantrill hurts. Josh Naylor, he got hurt, unfortunately, for him. But that one, like, for me, it's still going to be a wait and see. Let's see. I'm going to be more like, I want to see how Mike Clevenger does. If he's anything less, this is how I see it. If he has a worse ERA than Cal Quantrill, we lose. Fair and square, whatever. If he has a better ERA by 0.5 or more, we win because we don't know what's going to happen with Josh Naylor after his torn ACL. And that's hindsight, of course. Who's to say he would have torn his ACL if he was still with us? I mean, I don't know. Quantrill, who's to say? I think he showed a lot of potential with the Padres, but, really breaking out in a new environment was good for him. So I think Clevenger is really embracing, being a Padre. I love that for him, and I think he's going to have a really solid season. I think he's going to be one of those guys where if we do make the playoffs, he'll probably be one of the top 4 or 5 contributors for that, considering how down we were, with energy, with the pitching staff going down. Like a lot of that was down last year. So, if Mike Clevenger can provide what I'm hoping he can, then I'll consider it a win. But like I said, the rest, still optimistic with Trent Grisham. I'm a Trent Grisham stan, I guess you could say. And Austin Nola, I don't think he's going to be a great catcher. I mean, we put him in our top 10 because catching is horrible right now. So hopefully he vaults into my top 5 next year. And I think that will also make that it won't make it worth it because, as far as it looks right now, Ty France had a solid season, and I'm not too crazy optimistic about Trammell, but I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I just don't feel like any of these are really going to like just ruin the Padres. Like, yes, I mean, I've talked about how much I like Cal Quantrill and how much I was like, damn, like we really gave up Cal Quantrill. Because if you look back, you could have gave up Paddock, and Paddock was probably worth more at that time. So I think it's something that you always have to look back on. And I think that's why I think Cal specifically is so frustrating. But Isaac, you bring up like you don't know how he's going to look in San Diego. We've seen that the Padres have really struggled to develop pitchers. So, and I do think that's going to change now, bringing in Ruben Niebla. But I don't know. I don't know if we can say like, okay, he's going to look as good as he did in Cleveland. So I think that's one of the big questions there. The energy wise of Clevenger, I think that's something to bring up that's really important because he definitely feels like he's like at home in San Diego. And I would even go to say if he looks solid this year, he could be a guy in the middle of the season that gets extended. I would not be surprised if that's the case. So that could be one where right now, like Chase, I think what all the stuff you're saying is totally fair too. I think that right now, if you look at the deal, you go, okay, yes, the Cleveland's won this deal so far. However, if Clevenger is that dude and he is that elite, you might be like, yeah, maybe the Padres gave up a lot, but they did get their guy. And if they get their guy, then I think it looks a lot better. Austin Nola, I feel like I'm probably the highest on Austin Nola out of everyone here. I don't know. I just think defensively how he calls games is so important. And we had him pretty high on our catchers list, but it's not saying much, dude. Like it's not saying much when you look around. I think for a catcher, I think if he's healthy, if he plays 120 games, um, I, I don't know, that could be a lot more of the season looking at it now. But if he plays at 120 games of a 160 game season, I think that it'll look a lot better. Like I think we're gonna be like, damn, like he ended up having one of the highest averages in the league, and he's one of the best game callers and one of the best defensive catchers. Like, wow, this dude is the full package behind the plate. Like this would mean the difference of winning 5 to 10 games, and that can be huge in a season. So I do think that he's going to provide a lot of value and kind of have a bounce back season. But I don't know, very interesting. Let us know what you guys think. Are these trades going to burn the Padres? If you have been following the series that we've done about AJ Preller's trades, which we have not posted a segment on this in a few weeks now, but we wanted to come back to it. There was actually some Padres news, pretty exciting stuff. But when you look at this, like, I don't know, Preller's definitely got burned pretty bad on some of these trades. I don't know if this is necessarily the season where that's going to be the case, but let us know what you think. Comment below, what you're excited about out of these trades, what you're worried about, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow. And for tomorrow's episode, we're going to be doing our overall, how do we feel about AJ Preller? Are we confident in his ability to make trades? So we will talk to you guys then.